a new poll that recently came out that shows Americans now support the legal recognition of same-sex marriage at a rate of 70%. That is a good thing. That is a good thing. For decades, this country has made villains out of those that choose to love who they want to love. So let's go back to this whole marriage thing. When someone comes to you, especially a Christian evangelical, and they say something like, oh, you are now redefining traditional marriage. First of all, you redefine traditional marriage, because I know of marriages more traditional than the Western interpretation of marriage, where a marriage was more than one person or a marriage was selected by the parents. So you've already changed the definition of traditional marriage. And how did marriage even come to be in America? Well, the marriage license was a game based in racism. Do your research. Here's how that started. You see, during the early colonizers, you did have some religious leaders who were willing to consummate marriages between individuals of mixed race. Government said, you can't do this. And so they created policies in their states that mandated the church or the couple getting married must get a government license to marry. Once again, changing the traditional understanding of marriage. And you had to get this license from the government to get married, because the government would then say, we do not give licenses to marry if you are of a different race. Rooted in racism, changing the understanding of marriage. So my point is this: there has never truly been a traditional definition of marriage. It has been a cultural expression from day one. And what is marriage? What does the word actually mean? It means the joining of two. That's what it means. And it means that there's a recognition of that joining. Why would we not recognize two grown ass people who want to be recognized together? So that's my point on that. I'm glad to see that 70% of Americans are now in favor of it. Great way to celebrate the month of Pride for our brothers and sisters in the struggle in the LGBTQ community. But Ben, what are your thoughts about it?
I'm thinking that number sounds familiar. Isn't it about 70% of Americans who want to pass HR 1 or some version of HR 1 to protect the voting rights of Americans across this country? So it seems to me that we are being controlled and dominated by a very bigoted minority, right? And they don't want the liberation of all people. They want the government to continue to benefit them. When they wanted to control the definition of marriage, they used the government to change it and then control it. But now that other people are liberating and now getting to say how we are going to define our own marriages, they're saying, nope, that doesn't apply to you. So they're playing a game. It's a game of bad faith, but thankfully it sounds like we're down to 30% of Americans. So it sounds to me like most of America is progressive.
Absolutely, and the Gallup poll, they first conducted this survey in 1996. In 1996, Ben, this survey showed that only 27% of Americans believe marriages between same-sex couples should be recognized by the law as valid. It's just amazing to me that we consistently have to have arguments to make sure everyone is treated fairly. If you are an adult, and think about what Republicans do with this kind of nonsense. If you are an adult, Republicans would typically say, oh, we need less government intrusion, right? That's what they used to say. But they want more government intrusion as it relates to who you love. They want more government intrusion as it relates to a woman's right to choose or what to do with her body. They want more government intrusion in that arena. But then they say things like wearing a mask is too much government intrusion. None of this makes sense to me.
I know it actually does. It makes sense to me now. It makes sense to me now because it is necessary for them to continue to play this game of flip it and reverse it. If it's something that's good for them, we want it. If it's something good for, if it's something that benefits the conservatives, they want the government involved. If it doesn't, they want the government out. But they flip and reverse it for the rest of us. If it's something that's gonna help black people, they don't want the government involved. If it's something gonna help women, LGBTQIA individuals, then they don't want the government involved. But if there's something that harms us, oh yeah, pay $2 billion a year for a local city police department. Keep spending more money on things that harm us. So as it pertains to the government, they flip it and they reverse it. If it's good for them, they want the government. If it's bad for them, they don't want the government. If it's bad for us, they want the government for black people and for marginalized communities, and that's how hypocritical they've always been.
And that's a remarkable point, Ben. I was talking to my production team earlier today, and we were talking about schools and colleges, how some of them are adversarial to individuals who are members of the LGBTQ community if they happen to be a Christian institution. And here's what's so hypocritical to that. The Bible talks about thou shalt not commit adultery. And I guarantee you, a whole lot of those Christians that drop their kids off or that go to these Christian colleges, they're committing fornication and adultery.
Come on, man.
Nobody says, put on this application right here if you commit fornication or adultery. It also says thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not bear false witness. All of that is in there. Yep. Come on, man. Usury, all of that is in there, right? But they pick and choose, and I'm making this point. The same thing they have done with the Bible is the same thing they do with legislation and policy. It's the exact same thing. Same game.
They know how to leverage power for their own benefit, and they know how to leverage power against us. And they've mastered the rhetoric that's necessary to sustain those cognitive dissonances. They're the masters of those half truths that Malcolm was talking about.
Come on, brother. I'm of the mindset now that if you believe that individuals should not have equal access and equal protection, there is no way you are living a value system based on a God consciousness. And here's the reality. My atheist brothers and sisters, I have so many atheist friends, and we know some of them right here. They have a stronger value system than a whole lot of folks walking around preaching God and preaching Jesus. Quite ironic, right?
Why you think we had to leave the church, man? You know, both of us got some church in us. We had to get away from them hypocrites. I would rather deal with an honest atheist than a bigoted, hypocritical Christian any day of the week.
Come on, man. Let me remind people of the Equality Act. Once again, opposed by those on the right. What would the Equality Act actually do? Prohibits discrimination based on sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity in these areas: public accommodations and facilities, education, federal funding, employment, housing, credit, and the jury system. Who thinks that's a bad idea to say we won't discriminate against you in these arenas based on your sexual orientation? How do we get to a point where we're even debating saying this is something we should not do in the United States of America?
That's a word. Because I mean, look at what they celebrate though. What is good to them is decidedly and objectively bad to good people. So you said, what kind of people celebrate these kind of things? Bad people. Very simply put, bad people.
Yeah. I hope that our continued effort, and I say this to everyone watching, our continued effort, we cannot allow an us and them mentality. We cannot start creating silos of our own movement. We are better as a coalition. We're fighting for protection, we're fighting for equal rights, we're fighting for equal access, we're fighting for healthcare, we're fighting for criminal justice reform. But if we just keep fighting in silos, it's one finger. But if we fight together, we're a whole fist. And that's the point I try to make to my college students when I'm out speaking and when I do my shows. We have to stay united and not get caught up in the narrative of the oppressor in the process of fighting for each other and with each other.
Come on, somebody. Hello. The narrative of the oppressor versus the narrative of the oppressed. Because those of us who have been oppressed in this country, we have had to survive. And what the oppressor has had to do is to continuously find new ways to keep us trapped. And I believe, Dr. Richey, I believe that we're at the end of that game. Yeah. Because we're down to where the rubber meets the road. Are y'all gonna help defend voting rights or not? You're gonna worship the filibuster, or are you gonna protect the people who've been saving this country from white supremacy since we've been here? And I think the Democrats have a proposition in front of them. They're gonna have to make up their mind. What are they really about? Are they going to help us continue to save this country? Which means you gotta get rid of the filibuster, then which means, you gotta do something for the people now, or are you gonna be complicit with white supremacy?
Well said, my friend.